Welcome to another episode of Growth Hacker TV. I'm Bronson Taylor, and today I have Jonathan Mizel with us. Jonathan, thanks for coming on the program.
Thanks for inviting me. Really honored to be here.
Absolutely. I know we're going to get a ton of great information just because of how much you know about marketing. So let me tell people a little bit about you. You're the managing partner at Email Traffic Academy, and you're the CEO of Cyberwave Media, which helps businesses generate leads and sales, which of course everybody wants more of both of those things. But here's a fun fact that people may not know. You were one of the earliest people on the internet to use a squeeze page, and you're the one that actually named it a squeeze page. So from now on, when someone refers to a squeeze page as a squeeze page, they could be like, I know that guy. I saw him on Growth Hacker TV.
Right. Thank you. Yes, it's totally true. And I was just joking with my wife. She said, I don't care if you invented the squeeze page. You still have to take the garbage out. So
that's awesome.
It doesn't help me at home, but internet marketing conferences is certainly a deal. And it's also something that we believe in, and just, we've been using them for so long, but we still use them to this very day. They still work. It's still a process that's super important to pretty much any business that's trying to make more money online.
Yeah, absolutely. So you know an insane amount about email, and so that's what I want to really dig into today, because it's something that I know the startups watching this and listening to this can learn from, and they may have an email strategy, but probably not the right one. And so we're really going to get to the heart of the issue today. So tell me this first. Is an email list that important for a startup? What's your 2 cents on that?
It's probably the most important thing, and the reason is because it's really one of the most effective ways that you're going to be able to establish contact and build a tribe, build a relationship with a group of people who you can. I've got people on my list who I've had on my list for over 20 years. I started collecting and building my list 20 years ago. I still have people from the very earliest days of the internet. And the one thing I really love about email traffic or building a list, the kind of internal email traffic that you get from mailing your own people, is that it doesn't really cost you any money. If you're going out and let's back up. The most effective people to sell something to are the people who already know who you are. So when you have a new product launch, or when you've upgraded your product, you're in version 2.0 or whatnot, you can go out, you can start buying clicks from Google, or you can use social and Facebook and all that other stuff. But you're never going to get the kind of response that you get from people who already are familiar with who you are. And so every time you collect a name and put that on your list, you're really kind of establishing that connection with that person. And that connection, you never know where that connection could go. It could be a future partner, it could be a customer, it could be an employee. Think about that. So many people are looking for talent these days, and one of the best places to get your talent from is from your super fans, and that's really what email is all about. It's creating not just a tribe, but I like to say the world is divided up into haters and fanboys, and so. And you can't have one without the other. But those fanboys and fangirls, those people who really love you, those are the people that are going to drive your business until you get that next round of funding, or until you do that $1 million launch. And those are the people that are going to come in from collecting email addresses early off the bat.
Absolutely. So having a list is super important. Like you mentioned, we kind of de facto want to think about Google, but the AdWords platform is mature. Like, the price is set. It costs a lot. Email is really the best way to get in touch with your customer for the best return on investment. But the question that everyone's going to have who's watching this is going to be like, okay, great. Email list is super important. We've heard before, the money's in the list. Everybody knows that. How do you build a list, right? And that's where there's a huge gap in knowledge. We know we need one, we want one, but we don't actually know the next step, so we just forget that it matters.
Right, and a lot of companies will build a list based on people who buy, right?
Hmm.
But let's look at typical conversion rates, and they range from 0.5% to maybe 4 or 5%. If you're rocking out, if you're doing great, that means that 95 out of 100 people are going to come to your website and leave without ever giving you any sort of information about themselves, and you're just not going to know really what to do. I mean, you're going to be lost in terms of how to get back to those people. So one of the strategies that we recommend for anybody out there, and a lot of people are using Google and Facebook, and that's great, and PPC and all sorts of other types of advertising, is to have a list collection strategy, some sort of way, whether it's a squeeze page that gives away a free trial version of your product, whether it's some sort of offer that gives them a video. You got to give them some reason to opt into your list, some reason to excite them enough so that they want to hear back from you again. And when someone opts into your list to download a PDF, and I've seen the boring big companies use white papers and things like that. A company that's a big boring company that uses a white paper is still better than someone who's not collecting any list or any data at all. So
Absolutely.
hopefully you've got something more exciting than a white paper.
Yeah.
You've got a video or a trial. One of the things we do, we work with a lot of supplement companies and people in the health space. And I'm like, if your product really helps people sleep, then give away a 10-day supply. Charge them free plus shipping. Get some sort of connection with that customer, or give them a report on 10 ways. If you're working with a sleep aid company right now, give them a free report on 10 ways that they can get better sleep at night. And of course, one of those ways is to buy your product. But you've now established yourself as an expert in the field, and when you email them, assuming that sleep is really an important problem for the prospect, which it probably is if they're on your website, assuming that that's something that you can solve for them, they're gonna trust you, and they're gonna come back. And when you have an offer, when you have a freebie or you have a coupon, now you're going back to those people who you have given the report to or the video to or whatnot, and now you've got a hot list of people who you can actually test with. And there's something else too. When you're going out and buying cold traffic, and cold traffic is strangers who've never heard from you. So Google traffic or Facebook traffic, we do a lot of split testing. We like to know which headline works best. And you and I both know, and probably a lot of people on the call do as well, but when you have two different versions of a page, you might have one, do 300 or 400% better than the other. And so if you're going to go out and start buying clicks from Google or Facebook, you might need to spend $4,000 or $5,000 in order to find out which page actually converts better. But when you have an email list, you not only don't need nearly as much traffic because they're more engaged, but you just hit send on the email system, and when everybody else is out there trying to optimize their Google page or getting slapped, more likely, you already know which headline works best, which offer works best, which background color works best, or which picture.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things you said really, I think, is something this audience needs to hear. They always think about a leaky bucket. They think about churn, and they think of the top of the funnel starting with the buyer, and then you got to keep the buyer, right? But if the top of the funnel is traffic and you're losing at least 95% of it because they're not becoming a buyer and you're not capturing an email, you have a massively leaky bucket before you even started your measurement tools, before you even started the way you think about your funnel. And so I think that's really a great insight, is that they're losing a lot of potential before they've even thought the game started. You know what I mean?
That's right. And anybody else who is out there in your space is going to eat your lunch. I mean, you're not going to be able to compete with them because, again, you'll be going out there. And let's be honest, with Google clicks are not cheap. In certain niches,
no, I know.
you're like in a If you're in I was just at the conference in San Diego, and Perry Belcher was talking about, like high net worth individuals or retirement planning. These are like $10, $15 clicks.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's not like, well, I'm going to pay 50 cents and he's going to pay 40 cents. I mean, you're looking at significant costs to get that traffic in. And so when you bring it in, the only way that you're going to have a shot at making your business work is to collect the name and email address of every single person who could potentially be interested in buying your product or doing business with you down the line.
Absolutely. So now you have the email address, right? So we know having a list matters. You have a list. What do you send them? Do you just keep sending them, hey, buy my product, hey, buy my product, hey, buy my product? Or is it more nuanced? Are you educating and then eventually selling? What do you think is a good strategy for the typical startup, let's say?
Well, for a startup, it's really about the long game. And if you can afford it, right? There are I deal with a lot of affiliate marketers and people who are one-shot marketers, and I'm like, well, you might as well just mail 10 or 15 emails out trying to sell your thing, over the course of a couple weeks and see if they'll buy, because in 2 weeks you'll be on to the next thing. But if you're establishing real relationships with clients, then you want to send content. You want to send things that are of interest to them. Take the sleep example. If someone has trouble sleeping, there might be other issues that they have in their life that could lead to other problems. And so there's other content that you could deliver to that person. There's other tips, and sometimes it's simple stuff like a listicle, or maybe it's other people's content. I mean, God, that's like something that we've done too. We found great articles on other people's websites. We don't rip those articles and put them on our site. I send people to those other people's websites or those other businesses' websites. I'll usually iframe it, and then I'll stick my banner up on top, of the page. And so this is kind of a legitimate way to, we'll say, model or take someone else's content without doing anything bad. What you're doing is you're just sharing that content with other people. And what's nice is that if someone's on your list and again, they've got a legitimate problem that you can solve, and you're giving them some information, they give you the credit for that. Even though somebody else wrote that article and it's on a completely different third-party website, they give you the credit for introducing them to that information, introducing them to that solution.
We need curation.
So, I would say curation is as important as
creation.
As content. And then some other things that I would recommend that a lot of startups and a lot of businesses don't do, because they don't want to know the truth. And so, I get it, man. You're like, you've got your focus, you're selling, software, accounting software to architectural firms, and that's your goal, and nothing's going to stop you. Well, here's something that could at least set you off in the right direction, is surveys. So as we start to build lists, figure out who the people are on the list and figure out what they want. Take the architects, the accounting software for architects, right? We deal with a lot of software people. Well, it might turn out that accounting is not the biggest problem that you can solve for the architects. So when you send a survey out and you ask questions like, do you have problems with your accounting? You ask all that stuff because that's your primary focus. Now you can also say, what other problems do you have? Well, there's a great, I think it's a Dan Kennedy question. He says, if you had unlimited godlike powers, what problem would you solve in your business immediately? So when you start to find out what really holds people back, what problems they have, now you've got opportunities to either sell different products or to reposition your product to sell it differently. So, there's content, and then there's also market research, which is basically surveying people. And then there's And then there's products, which is if you have a beta version, say that you've got a beta version. One of the things that we've done, we did this with one of our courses. We created the course, but I wasn't sure if it was any good. I mean, I think it's good. I think it's great. Nobody in my company is going to say that's not great. But, because whatever, they work with me and they were friends. But let's get the truth. So I took, I think, 10 or 15 beta testers from other products, other customers who bought other products. And I'm like, what do you guys think about this? And well, how would you change it? And, we got amazing feedback. People are like, you should do this, and I hate your logo, and the design is dated. And I'm like, oh my God, okay, enough. But the point is that gave us enough data to at least get into the point, to the place where we could launch it and know that we weren't going to have these basic things done.
Yeah.
Because as founders, we always have the situation where we think we know what the market wants, and then we start working on the project, we start working on the solution, the app, the software, the product, the whatnot. And then as we move forward, we sometimes, almost always, lose touch with what the original problem was that we're solving.
Yeah.
And so the survey and the market research stuff and the beta testing kind of brings it home to us, and it says, are we on the right track here? Because if startups did that, if they would get real feedback from their customers and then listen to those customers, I think that things would go very different for them. How many? I was watching some of the old growth hacker podcasts and just looking at a bunch of stuff. And why do businesses fail? They fail because almost universally they run out of money. And they run out of money that's why.
Yeah, I know.
But it's like if your burn rate is $1 million a month, but you got 20 million in the bank, well, come back in 19 months and we'll talk. Okay? But the fact is that if you have if you've got money coming in, if you know what the customers want, you're going to be able to mitigate that burn rate by taking the other direction and getting the cash flowing in before it can go out. And that's really the goal. You've got your cash, you've got your capital. Your goal is to bring the burn rate down and then bring the sales up to the point where the sales are at least a little bit higher than the burn rate. Yeah. And that gives you sustainability.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I love what we're talking about because it comes down to product market fit. We have a product and we're trying to get it to overlap with a market that it can satisfy. And the email list helps us get there, which I think is a disconnect for a lot of people, that you can actually get to product market fit through the email. And I've been thinking about PM Fit a lot the last few weeks. And it seems to me like a reflexive equilibrium. You have the product, and then you go out and talk to the market, and it informs the product. And then the product informs the market, and the market informs the product, till eventually you get them aligned so you can actually satisfy them with what you built. But just thinking about email as a tool to do that, I think is awesome. So let me ask you this. Logically, if we're able to build a list through our own squeeze pages, through our own free videos, free ebook, white paper, whatever, if we're able to build a list and send them great content and build that long-term relationship, it stands to reason that other companies have also done that. So that means there's all these companies with all these email lists, and is there a way we can tap into that? I mean, is there a way we can get in front of their people they've already acquired with their own list? I mean, is that possible?
Yeah, it's not only possible, it's what I've been doing almost my whole life. And it was shocking to me when I discovered that this world existed. So let's back up a little tiny bit. Whatever you're doing in your business, wherever you're advertising, whether it's Facebook or Google or some other channel or someone's mailing for you, whatever you're currently doing now, take advantage of putting an email collection device into your funnel, into your process. Make sure that there's some way that people can opt into your list. And I don't just mean like a little thing on the side that says subscribe to our newsletter. Make it real.
Give them a reason.
Make it go back to the sleep thing. You wouldn't have an article on sleep and then sign up for our free sleep tips. No, that's cute. Go ahead. If that's all you do, that's better than nothing. But what I would do is I would take that little that little subscriber box, and I would make that the page. That's what a squeeze page is. It's turning the email collection device into the offer, and then giving something away, and then once they opt into the list, then you take them to your page where you're selling the thing. And that's just always going to work a lot better. So assuming that that is in place, there are so many there's so many people, so many lists, and I think that a lot of folks don't even consider, their first thought is, why would someone rent their list? Because our big pitch is how to get email traffic without having your own list. And people are like, how do you do it? How do you do it? Oh my God, I gotta know, I gotta figure it out. Bronson, come on, give me the secret. Well, here's the secret. You give them some money. That's how you do it. You give them some money, and then they give you their credibility, and they mail for you. And in certain businesses, in certain niches, like in health, in a lot of the entrepreneurial fields, and self-help, in financial stuff, there are very well-established list brokers. There are people in the business whose job it is to rent lists and to get lists for you. Or if you're a consumer, right? If you're a consumer marketer, if you're selling to end users, consumer people, there are also companies like MySpace, or Cool Savings is one that we've used. Here's one. Everybody's heard of Publishers Clearinghouse. Well, Publishers Clearinghouse, they collect names so they can rent them out to people. So you don't have to beg, borrow, and steal, or promise to give someone a mailing. You just give them some money. And we've got one client spending $10,000 a week. They're a new age publisher, and they're spending $10,000 a week with Publishers Clearinghouse to go out in their email newsletter and to get a bunch of those people in. So in certain niches, it's just not hard, right? You can call companies like Flatiron Media or Archemax, and you give them an ad and some money, and they'll go ahead and do the mailing for you. But a lot of people find themselves in other niches, or smaller niches, or niches where there's not quite such an established list or media field. And by the way, this works for all media, not just email. So when you find yourself in a situation like that, you want to start looking at what we call the players in the market. Because in any space, in any niche, in any group that you're trying to market to, any vertical, there's going to be people who already control the traffic. There are going to be, there's like 5 different groups. There's gurus, and go back to the architecture office, right? There are architecture gurus. Here's one. There's a human resource. We work with some human resources people. So if you're not a human resources person, you've never heard of this. You've never heard of the human resources gurus. But you find the human resources conference. There's a conference. There's a show. There's some sort of summit, the Human Resources Manager Summit, and there's a guy or a woman who's the keynote, who's like the badass human resources director of all time. But that's the person you want to connect with. They probably have a course. They probably do some training. They probably do some certification. That's someone you want to connect with. Look at the publications in any particular field. Sometimes, and this is a great one, it doesn't even cost any money, if you're marketing to architects, you can go to the AIA, the American Institute of Architects, and I'm sure that they have publications and newsletters and mailing lists and all kinds of stuff, and you can rent those mailing lists. Or if you have a really great article like how to crack the nut on accounting for architectural firms, you can write an article for those publications or their blog and give it to them, and they'll run your ad for free next to it. So another one that's been super powerful for us is associations. We used to do a lot of insurance marketing, and we were working with the California State Bar, and we were working with the California Nurses Association. And if you want to reach nurses, well, there are a lot of ways to do it, mostly very expensive ways. But if you go to the California Nurses Association, their goal is to help you reach nurses and to help nurses find solutions to their problems. So we found that associations, trade bureaus, anybody that's got a licensing thing. So like if there's a licensing bureau or a state licensing bureau, quite often you can get those lists. It's not always email addresses, but maybe you use a postcard mailing or direct mail or something like that. And there's one more on my list right here. Oh, also look at the top websites, and the people, when you're looking at the people controlling the traffic, look at the top sites, look at the top networks, the top people who are already controlling that traffic, selling stuff to that market. Jay Abraham is one of my marketing gurus, and if you have not ever heard of him, I know you have, but maybe some people haven't. But he's got a really great philosophy that has driven how I found media and how I've done email for people. And that is, if you want to attack a market, you can either go into the trenches with your guns and your copy and your whatnot, and you can slog it out, you can fight it out, hand-to-hand combat with those guys. Or you can find someone who already has that market, and you can give them some money, and you can shortcut the whole process. Now, there's something to be said for getting out in the trenches and for failing a lot with Google or spending a bunch of money on Facebook and finding out what doesn't work. But for me, I'd much rather figure out who already has that relationship. If somebody has the relationship you want, you just give them the money or give them the content, or the best thing is make them an affiliate if you can. Once you've been doing this for a while, people will come to you and say, "Hey, I want to promote that accounting software. I've got a list of 32,000 architects in the United States. Do you pay a commission?" And your answer should be, "Of course we do." How much commission do you need? And we'll give them, sometimes we'll give them the whole first year in order to acquire the customer, or the first 6 months, or we'll give them a majority of the commission. A lot of the consumer stuff we do pays more than 100% commission just to get the person into the database, because we know that person's going to stick if they try the product. And if they don't try the product, or if they try it and they don't stick, that's our fault. We have a problem with it. We better fix our product. So people are willing to share their customers if you can solve their customers' money, if you solve their customers' problems, and if you pay them for the relationship.
That's awesome advice. I mean, I know people are listening to this and they have so many ideas right now. Their mind's going a mile a minute. They're thinking about the places they can go to leverage other people's audience, LOPA, instead of going in the trenches and slogging it out themselves. And so thank you for just dropping all of that knowledge on us just now. All right, so here's the last two questions I have. And these are the ones I end every interview with. They're the fun ones, just to kind of learn about you a little bit here. What are you working on right after this interview? And it could be whatever you're really doing, not the thing that sounds cool. All right.
Well, I was going to go to the beach, but it is actually cold and rainy in Hawaii. And by cold, I mean, mid-70s.
Of course.
So I think what I'm going to do is I'm working on our new course. I'm rewriting some of the new course. So I'll be sitting in my office working today and probably taking a walk when it stops raining.
All right, there you go. And last question, what is the best advice you have for any company that's trying to grow?
The best advice I can give you is capture as many email addresses from qualified prospects as you can and never screw them over.
I like that last part.
That's it. I mean, never violate the expectation that you set when you open that relationship. And those people will stay with you forever. And, startups come and go, right? I've had people who had a failure in one particular field, but they've gone into a different company, but similar niche. They've taken the old list and now they're promoting the new people, because it's not about that company. It's about what that person can do for them, about the relationship that you build.
Yeah. Well, Jonathan, this has been an excellent interview. Thank you again for coming on Growth Hacker TV.
Honored to do it. Thank you very much, Bronson.